Hi there. It's the Gun Cranks. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, tongue-tied, along with Tom McHale, American Handgunner editor, and Eric Gelhaus, AmericanCop.com editor. And this is what, fifth, sixth, seventh, 14th take?
Fifth take.
Trying to get this started.
Nice work.
Lots.
Yeah, nice work. The other takes, I went drones. Okay, we're going to talk about drones today. And now that I got through the introductions, hi, welcome to the Gun Cranks. We haven't been on for a while. That's pretty obvious. We're a little rusty, but hey, it's live, right? So, how are you guys doing?
Good. Good.
What is that noise, Tom? What have you got?
I was launching my counter drone, and I was hoping to have it fly right up into the screen, but it's out of control. Needs a little calibration.
So basically,
that would have been an epic opening, but
yeah, it would have been. But we're 2 minutes in, and we've completely just messed this thing up. So let's try to push forward with this episode of Gun Cranks, and we're going to talk about the current hysteria surrounding drones. So we were discussing, is this going to go away quicker than the Hawk 2 girl? You guys couldn't hear me. My microphone was messed up. I think she's already out of the picture. So this will be the next flash in the pan kind of thing, don't you think?
Could be. Who knows?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it depends on which of our theories as to what they're doing really is actually the right one.
And I don't think drones will go away. I just think it's going to be
the hysteria
going on with the drones right now.
Yeah,
might go away.
Well, if you're one of 3 people in the world who haven't seen all these stories, if you watch the mass media, there's waves of drones at night doing something. We don't even know what they're doing other than being around. And I will say that I do think there's something odd going on. But now that they've kind of opened it up, they're getting millions of tips. And, unfortunately, the American public, if they tell them, we'd like to hear your tips about drones, there's guys standing at the end of an airport runway watching a 747 go over and go, I think it's one of them there drones. So it's reaching peak mass hysteria at this point. But we thought we'd talk about drones and maybe even some counter drone strategies, which are illegal, I need to point out.
But potentially accessible to everyone.
Potentially accessible to everyone, but yes. No, I was doing my research on this, and I'm a budding UAV pilot. I've got a couple of drones. I'm actually studying for the drone pilot certificate. I'm not sure if that allows me to jump seat on commercial airlines, but apparently you have to have it if you're going to do something remotely business related with a drone. But basically what's going on is they're seeing all these drones across the country, and apparently they're great big things like 6-8 feet across. And just so folks understand, there's a bazillion drones out there, ranging from the little micro ones like Tom's got, which do not need registration, anything over a half
pound. Nor do they fly, apparently.
Nor do they fly where the darn. But anything over actually 0.55 pounds, a half pound, you have to have remote ID capability. So it broadcasts who your drone is and who you are, and they can trace you back. Well, apparently these giant things are flying around, especially New Jersey, and especially at night, and they're not doing any of that. So, guys, let's start talking about what we think it is. And I'll be real simple with this. It's the government. They're doing some kind of secret squirrel stuff, which they should be doing, but they don't want to come out and say, okay, this is our new weapons system or detection system. And, because then you got hundreds of Chinese standing down there with binoculars trying to copy it. So, Tom, I'm sure you've got a theory, though.
It's more of a fact than a theory. I've done the math on this. The one, you are correct. It is a government drone program, as explained by the volume and the coordination between drones. You take the location into account, and what they are doing is they are scanning for misgendering. So here's how I know this to be true, because I'm kind of a computer nerd. So what? So I look, hey, the facts will bear this out. So I looked at the flight patterns of these drones, and what they are doing is they are going from Starbucks to Starbucks in a carefully orchestrated pattern. And they've got sensors on these things and detection systems to see who is misgendering the baristas.
Well,
You
okay,
guys,
we're done.
you are
That's-
lazy because it doesn't take that much work to discover this kind of stuff.
The barist X's.
Yeah. So
Tom-
there, back to how long this is going to be news, January 20th. Because I think the new president will likely put a stop to the misgendering scanning program.
Well, all I want to ask is, Tom, have you taken your medication today?
Do the math.
So would they use
Starbucks, telling you.
would they use some kind of radiomagnetic sensor, or do they just
Tinfoil.
visually identify?
Tinfoil.
Okay. Okay.
It's like this offended metering system. Like it measures the level of being offended.
Oh, so
It's
they
something
can,
that hormones are excreted
Yeah,
or something
the-
when there's a misgendering offense, and the anger level goes up. So,
So
yeah,
if
it's really
somebody-
more outrage than anger, different set of hormones. So
they really get their panties in a twist, and the scent rises into the air,
Mhm.
and these drones. Okay.
So that's what's actually happening. If you guys have theories that are obviously not correct, please share them.
After that, I got nothing. Eric, save the program.
So there has been some nefarious stuff going on with this, right? The feds did just roll up a Chinese actor who got caught flying a drone over Vandenberg Space Force Base while he was getting ready to get on a plane at SFO to fly back.
Yeah.
There is something there, right? There was a leaked report. Who knows if it was leaked or just somebody was making stuff up about a container that potentially had some radioactive material in it that somehow showed up empty at some port up in the Northeast. Right, the folks have thought that these drones were flying around looking for that. There's been a reminder that the FAA finally approved sometime early last year drones to be flown at night now, where they couldn't be flown before. So when everybody's going, well, we've never seen these drones in the sky. Well, yeah, you couldn't until pretty recently.
Eric, why are you confusing us with facts?
Well,
because apparently
serious
that's my
question.
job, according to the Reader Mail.
Do you know if the Chinese actor story was it a small drone or a big drone, or do we know?
It was big enough that apparently it wasn't line of sight. It was over Vandenberg, which is a decent sized base for what it is.
So like a commercial,
probably commercial
drone, or
bigger. Yeah.
not something you buy in
Not a-
Walmart
Not
or
a
whatever.
DJI desktop.
Yeah.
Huh.
Actually, to correct you on the empty nuclear story, I've read a couple stories about that. They got it back. They said nothing to see here. Everything's fine. And they did. I think it was the Associated Press reached out to nuclear emergency something team from the
Nest.
military. Nest,
Nest,
exactly.
Uh-huh.
And they said we don't use drones, which maybe they do, maybe they don't. I do know.
don't believe that. Why
Well,
wouldn't they use drones?
Exactly. Or be testing drones at night in
Right.
Jersey. Yeah, exactly. But they said we use helicopters. And I do know from experience of working large national scale events, that is absolutely true. If you see a helicopter flying over, they could be measuring background radiation levels.
Yeah.
So, but like Tom said, why wouldn't they use drones? And that kind of goes back to my original statement that if the government isn't doing some really high level secret squirrel kind of stuff with drones, then they've completely missed the window of opportunity. Everybody
They
else
missed all that business going on in Ukraine right now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
It's entirely a drone war now. Well, no.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
know what I mean.
yeah, it is.
Not-
So was
As-
Syria.
As the North
Yeah.
Koreans are finding to their
yeah,
dismay.
I mean,
Well, the
world
Russians
has
and
changed.
the Ukrainians.
Yeah. The first videos coming out of the Ukraine, can you imagine at the Pentagon? Look at this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They got to hand it to the Ukrainians. And I know there's a wide variety of opinions on the topic, but when it comes to revolutionizing warfare and drone warfare,
yeah.
they get the Nobel Prize for that. So pretty cool.
Both
It was
sides
so
over there.
simple
have
at first.
both sides
just-
over there have hit the gas. But if you go back and look at the stuff from Syria 5-6 years ago, where they were hanging mortar rounds off of drones and flying them over armored vehicles and dropping them into the turret hatches,
Right.
yeah, the Ukrainians and Russians have just expanded on it.
Well, that's cool.
now
So-
they're cranking them out by the thousands, right?
Yep.
For
Yeah.
all kinds of uses.
Well, the other interesting thing about these drone sightings, the ones that they're talking about, again, it's not the, hey, my name's Billy Bob and I live out here in Kansas and I saw some of them there drones. The ones that they've said, I forget how many tips they've gotten, but they have received some credible tips. The interesting thing is the ones they're talking about is these are plane shaped drones, aircraft, fixed wing aircraft type drones, rather than what we all think is the 4 or 8 armed kind. So that would explain why they're bigger.
Mhm.
And folks may not realize, we all think of drones like that thing that Tom's got and what I held up, but really there's things like the Global Hawk. It's as big as a business jet.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of drones and there's all kinds of commercial drones. I know I live in the Midwest and they're experimenting with drones that do sensors of, soil and crop health and all that kind of stuff. So it's entirely feasible. But again, I go back to, I'm sure the government is doing some kind of cool thing. And I encourage that. Please do. Because, the Chinese are, and the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Syrians and the dabba. So you guys in that government program, keep doing what you're doing.
I'm just surprised they haven't thrown out some kind of credible cover story just to stop the crazy.
Yeah.
If you're developing a program, whatever, to scan for nukes or misgendering or whatever, come up with something benign. It's like, we're testing them at night because it's, that's when we'd use them. So we didn't want to bug everybody.
The plastic, the plastic
sorry,
we use
no
doesn't
foul,
do well with sunlight.
Yeah,
right?
it tans easily.
Like there's
so
nothing
we're doing it at
conspiratorial about
developing
and testing flying vehicle technology. I mean, come on.
So, okay, we've all got our theories on what the drones are doing, and there's a lot of them being reported that are nothing wrong with it. Let's talk about theoretically things that you might be able to do to stop drone incursions over your private property. But let me say again, number one, this is theoretical. Number two, it's illegal in virtually every circumstance to down a drone. And the problem is, if you actually would down a Chinese drone, I think folks would be pretty enthused. But the trouble is you got Billy Bob out there with his shotgun shooting at the 747s landing at the airport. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Or Orion's belt.
Yeah, exactly. So don't do this, kids. But I know people are talking about it. So we're going to come up with some ideas. And Tom, I'm afraid to open the floor to you, but go ahead. Your thoughts on how you're going to bring down the misgendering drones?
I actually have been thinking about this, and this is a serious question for you guys. So the shotgun approach, perfect. But if we're talking stuff that's 500, 1,000 feet in the air, even with like larger pellets, I'm a little, 1,000 feet's a good distance, right?
Yeah.
So a question for you guys, because I've never experimented with these. What about shotgun flechette rounds? Do they travel significantly farther? No? I figured one of you would have shot these things before. I have not. So
I have shot them, but it was not at distance. But just looking at the way they're designed and the weight, I don't get the impression you're going to get much beyond. And I'm just saying this is like an outer limit. Like, I don't think you're going to get much beyond 100 yards, which means 300 feet.
Too light.
Yeah. I was going to say the ones I've seen are steel or iron. Yeah. There's probably some other metals, but I don't think there's like lead because it'd be too soft. And then tungsten and some of those you probably could. And there may be one out there. Leave us a comment down below. But overall, I agree with Eric. I don't think you'd get much greater distance. So that makes a really good point, Tom. I hadn't thought about. Recreational drones are supposed to fly under 400 feet. Even 400 feet is pushing it from a shotgun. So don't be shooting at this stuff. But, okay, suppose you're sitting on your back patio and all of a sudden within 100 feet above the ground, you see a drone that says CCCP on the side with a big red star.
What would you do? Self-identify, isn't it?
Exactly. What would you do? What would you do?
I would take a photo and report it to the FAA.
That's a great idea.
No, you wouldn't.
You're being called
You would
out.
take a photo in the aftermath. Like, hey, this accidentally crashed. I guess somebody shot it.
You have other things to talk about.
Yeah. I've got a wounded a drone on my property. I think somebody else shot it, and it made it to my backyard.
Yeah, you call drone control.
Can I get a depredation tag for this drone?
Exactly. Well, in West Virginia, they probably do have depredation tags, I'm guessing, or actually Idaho, maybe. But my thought is, and I've got a friend that actually tested this out, and I'll leave it at that. I think the new tungsten rounds for like turkey, they are heavier. They do carry farther, and with some flight control wads, you can keep a pretty tight pattern. So I think that would give you another 20, 30 yards because, recreational drones, I'll say at least, are pretty fragile, especially the 4 and 8 arm jobs. You take one of those propellers out, motors out, it's not a good day. I don't know about the aircraft style ones. I'm guessing they're probably a little hardened against a kinetic force.
The problem there would be if you start armoring it against an incoming projectile, you're going to start adding weight.
True.
You get into weight power to weight ratio issues.
Yeah.
So I don't know just how much more protected they would be.
Yeah. Well, and again, there's the idea, if this thing's 6 foot, it's the size of an SUV, you bring it down, it has to come down someplace. And my luck would be, hey, I shot down the Chinese drone. Oh, it landed in the nursery school. So be thinking about that. That's why you're not supposed to shoot at that stuff.
Yes.
So.
I was just laughing to myself about the Florida man story who shot a Walmart drone or whatever it was with a 9mm pistol. Like, dude, that's coming down somewhere.
I hadn't heard that.
Just wait.
Oh yeah.
Just wait.
And the police showed up at his house and he goes, "I'm in trouble, aren't I?" You're like, "Oh yeah,
there's
trouble."
Wow.
Yes, for the record, I am laughing at the stories that are being told on this episode.
Oh,
that's subject for another day, though.
Yeah,
that is. I'll just say, it's not quite an inside joke. Eric gets complained upon by a certain watchdog group every time he opens his mouth. So go for it, folks. So I'm sure they'll accuse you. He says to shoot aircraft out of the sky, and what about the children? So I don't know. Anyway.
When these things start making regular deliveries, Amazon packages.
Oh.
Which they're going to have to because of the Amazon driver strike, right?
So.
See, it's all a conspiracy. And then you'll hire the out-of-work baristas that have been properly gendered to, I don't know.
Maybe the New Jersey thing is Amazon behind it. And they're like, you know what? We need to get all the crazy out of the way before we start delivering packages. And let's just be done with it. Put up a fleet of disposable drones. People shoot at them, whatever, and freak out and report UFOs. And then we'll go about our business or something.
Serious question. Do you think there's any chance this is a commercial entity testing out any platform? I don't think so.
I don't either.
I could see some possibility of it. I could see some test runs being done because now we're starting to hear it on both coasts. The problem, though, is once one person starts seeing the stuff, then everybody else is going to start seeing the stuff.
Yeah.
Well, how many pictures have you seen on social media, literally, of Orion's belt? Who knew it was made of drones?
Yeah. Well, and Starlink.
Billion light years away.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Starlink, it's just a constellation just zipping right across the sky.
Seeing a Starlink launch where they're actually distributing the satellites is one of the coolest things in the world to watch at night.
Really?
Yeah. So we've seen a couple of them, like during the night shoots at Gunsight, where that satellite will launch and then it starts kicking out the payload.
Oh, cool.
Drones? That's where the drones are coming from.
That's where the drones are coming from.
So
do you think
Musk,
if you had a 17 HMR, no, never mind. I don't know.
A 10 gauge.
Well,
with
a 10 gauge with a turkey choke,
coyote loads.
Maybe if somebody develops like a self-destructing round after it reaches a certain altitude, it just powders. And
what do you have there, Eric?
Then you don't have to worry about it coming down.
So I have a press release from a company called Hop Munitions out of Hayesville, Ohio. They have an electrically disruptive projectile, 9, 45, and 12 gauge. Take your pick. That will be available to civilians, law enforcement, and the military. They're marketing civilians. That is
there's a good idea, kids.
Drones and robots. It has some sort 3 to 5 grams of some sort of special compound in it that will short circuit the thing when you hit it. The problem I can foresee is that I'm not in any way, shape, or form associated with the company. Is if we start launching single projectiles, what goes up must come down.
I'm flabbergasted.
And that's a lot of airspace for a single BB, and I don't necessarily know that most folks who might run out and get this are going to be able to deliver the shot where it needs to be.
That's a backhanded way of saying, "Hey, moron, you can't shoot."
Yeah, so like I said, it's this company. It's Hop Munitions, HOP Munitions, and then they're partnered with Robo Rounds.
Why does something tell me the authorities are going to knock on the door one of these days and say, "I don't know about that"?
Well, what they're saying is that the 45 projectile and the 12 gauge slug are production ready. The 9mm is being refined, and they're going to debut them at SHOT. And
really?
Yes. And the press release I saw was on my buddy Eric, the other Eric G. Graves. It was on his website a couple days ago.
I want to see the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to report on that and do video.
Brent, bring your drone and let them take shots at it. Let's say
they've got a picture of the projectiles, and it kind of looks like a cross between like a Spear G2 or a Hornady critical duty load meets that old Federal EFMJ.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it looks like.
Interesting. Yeah. Again, I keep saying I don't want anybody to come back or heaven forbid we get a knock on the door or the boss gets a knock on the door saying, this guy said that you guys said it was okay. We're not saying it's okay. No. And, I've flown a lot here in the last month. I would really hate to take incoming fire because Billy Bob in his lawn chair thinks that 737 it's going over my property. Well, yeah, there's lots of flights every day, kids. So
don't shoot at these things.
Don't do it. The interesting thing is they did put a temporary flight restriction over certain areas, certain counties. And part of the publication is the authorities may take kinetic action against the aircraft and legal, whatever against the pilot. So I think that's probably a little smokescreen kind of thing because there's so much public outcry, but it's interesting. And I'm just glad that President Biden said there's nothing to see here right before he watched Matlock at 4:00.
So what do anti-drone drones use? Do they have guns with those hop rounds? Do they fire nets? Do they are they suicide drones where they just ram them and both go down in sparks?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing a story, whether it's legit or not. And Eric, you're probably more up to speed on this than I am. The Army has established a drone defense training course, and I think it's somewhere in the middle part of the United States. And the super high tech method they teach is shotgunning. So
I have heard rumors of folks in the U.S. military looking for longer barrels for 12 gauge shotguns because there are shotguns in the military inventory, both pump action and semi-auto. I have heard of requests for longer barrels and loads that would work for it. The counter drone stuff, in all seriousness, the counter drone stuff has gotten huge because of what's gone on in Syria and the Ukraine.
Well, yeah.
People are paying very big attention to it. And there's been a lot of discussion about, okay, now we need to go back to fieldcraft skills, about camouflage, about minimizing visual signature, minimizing heat signature, because depending on what the sensor package is on board, is it just visual or is it thermal, right? Folks are going to have to learn how to hide from this stuff again. It's not going to be, the next fight's not going to be done the way the global war on terror was, either in Afghanistan or Iraq, right?
And I was going to make that point somewhere in when we were talking about it. Locally, our police and fire department have drones, and that's pretty much state of the art across the country. So what you think is a drone spying on you, it may be our local police looking for a missing kid, which we've used our thermal imager on the drone to do. And along with, bad guys that have fled into, foliage or fields or whatever. So there's just a lot of good uses for these things. And it's, it's odd that they're flying at night. It's odd that they're in formation. All that's odd, but there may be a perfectly good reason for it. And I think the big problem here is just the government hadn't figured out a good pseudo explanation for what they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
and while there are a lot of drones coming in from offshore, specifically ones coming from China that people have concerns of varying degrees about, right? There are some real issues there. There are domestically made drones that are being used on the first responder side, and one of them being Brink out of Las Vegas. And listening to some stuff that they've done, they came up in the aftermath of the Las Vegas shooting, the one there by the casino. So there are domestic stuff that's got good, legit first response reasons. There's a lot of agencies now that are launching drones on 911 calls, just trying to get eyes on before the marked units get there.
Yep.
I must live in the boonies because I have yet to see a legitimate drone, like a commercial law enforcement, whatever, rescue drone in my area in the air. Just like happened to see one. Yeah, I know they've used them for, like Eric, like you were talking about, like search and rescue. There was some murderer on the loose in the forest near here, and they were using drones to find him. But I've never seen one in the air of size.
Yeah.
Both in California and in Utah.
That's the cool part. Even tiny agencies can afford these things because they're just, the technology has gone from a helicopter at what, $2,000 an hour of flight time plus the initial purchase to a drone that you're talking probably under $1,000 for a basic model. And they get much more expensive. But one of the interesting ones is fire departments. Used to New York or LA, Chicago had their own chopper, so they could have a scene commander. Because speaking from experience, in the middle of a big event, whether it's law enforcement, fire, the commanders don't really know what's going on. They're relying on what people are telling them. Now with these drones, they send it up. It can loiter and say, "Oh, well, this part of the building's catching fire, and we got crews in danger here." Same with wildfires. So it's really it doesn't get talked about as much because everybody's just thinking of Tom's little play drone, but it's really changing the way that a lot of things are getting done. So, and they make for great filming on the range, because if you haven't worked this out, we're not supposed to stand down range with our cameras. So did you ever see, Eric, the video that was shot at Gunsight where they did the high overall and then all of a sudden it flew down through the shoot house and all that?
Oh, that was amazing.
Rumor has it they went through several drones.
I bet they did.
Hey, they kept crashing them into concrete walls and stuff.
Do one of you guys have the URL for that? We need to put that in the comments to this video. That's a phenomenal video. It
was like double tap
really
ammo and somebody else. I've seen it, but I don't recall the link.
Yeah. So I wondered that. So they smoked a few drones getting those shots.
The end result was spectacular.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Well, I was going to say,
Gunsight.
when we're talking about the Chinese drones, I don't like you, China. Okay. Now I'm marked when they finally invade, but
you're already marked.
Well, that's true. I'm on so many lists. We're all on so many lists. Who cares at this point? So anyway, so what's our takeaway here, guys? It's the government, and they're doing something, and we're not supposed to shoot at them. Does that pretty much summarize it?
Yeah, and I think I would like to throw out those two questions to the comments. One, what is it really? Two, don't ever do it because it would be dumb and illegal. But if you lived in an alternate universe, how would you take them down?
Yeah.
Alternate universe, 10 gauge with coyote loads.
Yeah.
Okay. But because it's not legal here now, don't do it. Yeah. The problem is I don't necessarily know who's doing it, right? Like how much of it's like hobbyists, how much of it's commercial, how much of it's government. The unfortunate part, and we can talk about this in a number of different areas, the way things were handled the last several years between the media and government spokespeople, there's not a lot of trust for what's coming out.
What?
I know.
First I've heard of this.
I understand. It's shocking. It's traumatic. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem that's going to have to get overcome. And we're part of the media, right? But we're a niche part of the media. But this whole thing about there needs to be some balanced, unbiased reporting coming back really needs to be carved in stone, and some people need to be beaten over the head with those tablets.
I had to laugh, Eric, when you said we're the media, but only part of it. We're like the crazy uncle that you have to invite at Thanksgiving.
Cousin
But
Eddie media.
We're just a little niche part of it, right? I'm
Yeah.
just talking about the mainstream media.
Yeah. Well, anymore so what do you do? Instead of saying a writer, an editor, journalist, I say I'm a security guard at a bordello. That seems a little more honorable.
I got brought inside. I play piano for one.
Okay. There you go. Well, cool. Like Tom said, leave us your thoughts. And if you're going to type it in all capital letters and refer to InfoWars, don't bother, okay? But if you've got something a little more legit than gender changing detection something, we'd like to hear what
Settled
you have to
science,
say.
dude. Look at the map. Look at the flight paths.
All
I
right.
hacked Waze and FlightAware together, and it showed me the Starbucks.
And if
pattern.
you want to
The
ask
same.
the baboon, leave the question in the comments.
We didn't even bring up the baboon.
I can't bring the baboon. I'm in a hotel. I'm on the road.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think the baboon would say about this?
It's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible.
There you go.
He's so non-committal.
Well, in 6 months, the next time we do a gun cranks, first of all, hopefully we'll be a little more polished. Second of all, I want the baboon to have some headphones by then.
Baboon does.
Oh, he does?
I'm with me on this trip. Baboon, last time we looked around, Baboon had the headphones and he had a sign that said he voted.
There you go. So we
Multiple
have a
times.
remotely we're the first show on YouTube that has a remotely operated baboon. So there you go. Well, I'm still stunned, shocked, and horrified at Tom's brilliant.
Can you argue
deep
with the
dive.
logic?
Can't. Not at all.
Right.
It's
Just
great.
saying.
Speaking of Tom, did everybody catch the Easter egg in this episode? That's all I want to know.
If you did, leave that down in the comments also. So anyway, this has been a strange, disjointed, but I think somewhat entertaining episode of the Gun Cranks. So we appreciate you joining us. I'm sure our producer Ashley, who's sitting behind the scenes, is just holding her forehead and shaking her head at the same time. So this will be a fun one to edit. So anyway, check out our various publications: American Handgunner Magazine at AmericanHandgunner.com, AmericanCop.com, which we remind you frequently, Eric, it's not just for cops, is it?
No, it's for decent, normal human beings who want to be prepared. We hit both aspects of it.
Exactly.
We want to see some drone content coming up in there. Get on it.
You know what, if I can get somebody competent to write about it, sure.
What we're in the media. What's this competent thing you speak of? So
Go back to my commentary about carved in stone and hitting people with tablets.
there you go. And of course, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. So check out Guns Magazine, gunsmagazine.com. Well, guys, I appreciate you getting together and talking about this entertaining comment or topic. So we'll come up with something else, and maybe we'll practice before we do the next episode of The Gun Cranks.